This question's primarily for Dr. Herspring because you brought it up, but I'd like to open it up to all three of you. And that is, if Rumsfeld and Cheney are seen as CEO-type governmental officials, who would they be reflective on as their shareholders that they were responsible to?
Good question themselves. What I talked about CEO management style, I'm not with it. The shareholders are sort of irrelevant in that. To them, the fact is, I'm in charge. When Rumsfeld took over the Cereal Corporation, it was damn near in bankruptcy, and he turned around and took names and kicked you know what, and fired people on the spot, transferred people on the spot, and turned it around using a certain amount of connections he had during the Reagan administration to get certain things passed, certain drugs approved by the drug administration. He was a hard-charging, I'm going to fix it, I'm going to change things, I'm going to do it. And the problem is that going in that way, when he took on the Pentagon, he should have known better. He'd already been there once. And his attitude was that the military was in the 19th century, particularly the Army, and he was going to go in and change it, and the future of the world was high-tech, and that he got in there. The ironic thing is General Shinseki had already been putting in transformation policy, started in '99, because his attitude was everybody else is transforming, the Army's stuck and it's got to move. He could have worked with Shinseki, but he immediately announced that he wanted to get rid of 2 Army divisions so he could use that money for high tech. And at the same time, Shinseki was on the Hill testifying that he needed 2 more just to carry out the missions assigned to him. And so I don't think that his shareholder, I guess in a certain sense to him, was the president. He was going to go make the United States stronger, the American people, if it's probably in his own mind. He's going to make them stronger, and he was going to turn the military upside down. And when you go in and do that sort of thing, you've got to realize that when you're dealing with bureaucrats, first of all, they're going to be around when you're gone. And second of all, when you're dealing with people who have worn uniforms for 33, 34 years, they're sort of used to having to fight their way up. And you have to have been in the bureaucracy to realize how many ways there are to go around you. And he tried sending out snowflakes and those little memos. Eventually, one friend of mine had gotten 3 of them. He answered the first one immediately, the second one immediately, the third one never answered. Nobody ever asked him about it. It was to keep the bureaucracy busy and their eyes off. And at 9/9, he blasted the Pentagon civilian workers, and there was a big thought in Washington that he was on his way out because he had fought with the military so bad for the first 9 months in office that there was the thought that Rumsfeld was the first one to go. And then 9/11, and what happened? We saw the picture of him carrying the stretcher. He even became the darling on the evening news and movie star, and he was in. Besides, when you have a 9/11, you can't change your defense secretary if you're going to war. It makes you look like a total idiot. So, I mean, he saved himself by that way, and, you know, he was there for a long time, and basically the military was neutered, to use the only expression I can think of.
Let me say something about Bush's CEO model. If you're president of the United States, you have to assure yourself that you're operating with the best available information. And I think the signals he sent, for example, on the weapons of mass destruction, he never performed that way. So to take 2 examples, the aluminum tubes. There was one way to interpret the aluminum tubes, ordinary missile shells. Another way, if you redesign them, they could be used as a first step towards some nuclear capacity. And every time the administration looked at an issue like that, or on the so-called mobile labs, which fascinated Colin Powell, the same thing happened. There was a dual use. The mobile labs could have been generating hydrogen, which is what they actually did, we know, or they could have been carrying around biological agents. Why anyone would want a mobile lab with biological agents running around town is kind of hard. But every time the administration had something that had dual use, they always took the one that was most in favor of the case of weapons of mass destruction. The last one, the yellow cake, I mean, that was based on a fabricated document. I don't know why the CIA couldn't figure that out. I think anyone in this room could have gone on Google and looked at the document, if you had it, to see the name of the Niger official. He did exist. And the date he signed the document, he wasn't in office on that date. So how you could go ahead on the basis of that? So I think
that was on the basis of the British, what the British told us.
Oh, that's another thing. I mean, we have $50 billion for our intelligence community, and we're going on the basis of what the British told us. No, that's not good enough.
One of my friends was a retired Air Force colonel and he was deputy director of the on-site inspection agency. He said they told the administration before the war that they had been inspecting, they had been all over Iraq, and he said they're not there. Now, if they've been removed, who knows? That's something. But he said that I had him out to K-State and lectured, and he said we went in there because we had our teams on the ground, and we said there are no WMDs in Iraq because we can't find them if they're there. And the argument was, well, they're there, but you just can't find them. And his argument was, as inspectors, we're pretty good at what we do, and we would have found something that would have been traces, and he said we told him before the thing. But still, if you look at the president's psychic after 9/11, everybody who writes about the thing says, you know, it changed him. You can imagine, on my watch, what happened. I think the argument can be made that the WMD is fair. Whether the threat was imminent or not is another question.
By the way, I'm very skeptical of the notion that Saddam Hussein would have taken weapons of mass destruction and sent it to another country. Would Syria want that stuff coming in, or any other country? I don't understand that at all as a plausible argument.
Can I get one more question in?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'll use an old man's privilege to stay up. In 1974, I think we're going to talk about the elephant this little. 1974, the House Judiciary Committee met and subsequently issued 3 articles of impeachment against Nixon. And they were powerful enough without even a vote in the House that he resigned. As an amateur historian, I start the rise of the imperial presidency with FDR for 2 reasons. He violated Washington's 2-term rule, and his brain trust in 1935 thought up withholding tax, and the power of government took off like a big bird. Between FDR and Clinton, I'm going to use this podium here, the imperial presidency got about there. In my opinion, and it's based on the fact that I had the unique opportunity to advise the President of the United States about the scope of the presidential pardon power. But my godfather, Phil Buchan, asked my law firm here in Grand Rapids, what was that scope? We don't want a Washington firm to look at it, they're too legal. So it was our firm that advised it was virtually unlimited. I believe if all the presidents of Clinton are here, Bush is here, and he will leave office unscathed. I don't want to get into the merits of impeachment. You get all there are lots of bases, I think, if in fact it were the investigation survived with a violation of the high crimes and misdemeanors section of the Constitution. What I'm concerned about is some president in some future year will use this platform that this administration has created as a jumping off point for a further deprivation of civil liberties. Gentlemen, do you share my fear?